All right, everyone, welcome back to part two of today. I'm sure Jeff Ritter has inspired you, a bit of Monday morning motivation for everyone. So it's with great pleasure I get to introduce your next speaker now. He has coached, or is coaching, the likes of Charlie Hoffman, Cameron Tringale, Ben Crane, a stable of wonderful players. He's got a golf book. He's got a book out about the wedge game that was released last year. He's got a putting one that he tells me is coming out in a couple of weeks. So he's an established author. He's one of Golf Magazine's top 100 teachers in the world. And he is your next speaker on the art of coaching the short game. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. James Sieckmann.
Thank you, sir. Super excited to be here. Definitely want to thank Stephen for reaching out to me and inviting me back. Thank you, Stephen. It's been a long time since I've been to Thailand. That's since 1991, I think was the last time I was here. So I know everybody in this room has sacrificed to be here. And I really, your money, time away from your family, it's so important to try and learn and step out of your comfort zone and grow as a coach. And I want you to know that I really appreciate the efforts and the sacrifice, and I want to do a great job for you for that reason. I want to be all in. Short game's a big topic. It's a very big, there's so many different types of shots, And I'm going to load you up with technique. We're going to talk tomorrow about bunker play and different wedge shots around the green and putting and whatnot. And I'm not looking for any converts. Matter of fact, I would hope that you disagree with most of it. I would hope that there's no way we could put 200 people in a room and have agreement on a technique issue, right? But what I'm hopeful that it does, at the very minimum, if you disagree, would be to inspire you to dive deeper, to create bigger, more powerful understanding of how all the pieces fit together, of different ways you can help different types of players. And that should bring about, at the very minimum, a lot of questions. And don't wait until tomorrow, end of session, to ask questions. If there's something about what I'm presenting wedge-wise, coaching-wise that you don't get, I don't know if it's culturally bad to be asking questions in front of your fellow golf professionals, but I want you to do it. So if you have a question, please literally raise your hand if I see you, or stand up. I want to stop and I want to answer the question. So I'm going to start technique-wise with wedge play. And I'm not just, when I'm talking about wedges, I'm not just talking about the pros. I mean, I teach little kids, I teach women, I teach high handicappers. I want to help everybody. This is not just about the 1/10 of 1%. So hopefully what I'm going to share with you, you'll find out applies to everyone there. So first question I have for you is, anybody suffering from like chipping hips in the crowd? Don't be ashamed, but really struggling. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an epidemic, is it not? It just seems to me, and maybe it's just what I do, and it seems to me I have 6 people a day show up and say, the chipping hips, if I don't figure this out, I'm quitting. And it's an interesting problem to help someone through, because there's obviously, besides mechanical issues, there's definitely scar tissue there mentally, right? And you have to solve not just the mechanical problem, but the mental issues. And especially if I feel like I'm running a bit ahead, I'm going to pull one of you up, volunteer, and I'm going to give you a free lesson. We're going to coach you up. Okay, so I want to interact for sure. So y'all want technique, I realize that, but before I give you what you want, I'm going to give you what I want to give you, which is what I think you need more than the technique. If I speak for 3 hours, we're going to do 2.5 hours of technique. So don't be disappointed that I'm going to start with a bit of coaching. Because I think it's the thing that's made the difference in some of the successes I've had as a coach. And the very first thing, the most important thing that I think you need to do is you need to create a culture in your business. There's an American football coach, famous coach by the name of Tom Osborne. He coaches college football. He lives in the same state as me. He had 5 national championships. And he told me one time, just in passing, something that really changed my career. He said, James, you have a culture in your business, in any organization, on any team, in your business, there's a culture whether you want one or not. And because of that fact, I always felt it was my responsibility as a coach to create the culture I wanted so I could get the performance from the team that I knew we could achieve. So think about this. Who's creating the culture in your business if you're not? It's the guy that's seen 4 teachers and you're the 5th. It's a guy that's a 15 handicap and he just thinks if he can figure out if he can get that left arm straight or figure out the right way to move his right arm, that he's going to be scratch. It's the guy that reads Golf Magazine or Golf Digest and immediately goes out to try that tip. And when it doesn't work, he goes on to the next teacher or the next tip. Is that really the culture you want? Is that how you're going to be successful? As coaches, we simply cannot allow this to occur at your facility with your students. Because there's one thing I know, and that is that bad students make you look stupid. I don't like looking stupid. And so I have tried my best to figure out a way to create good students at my academy. All right, so I want to just give you a picture of a typical lesson. And I have an advantage over some of you because my typical lesson usually lasts like 4 to 6 hours. People are usually flying in from somewhere. But even in those ones that are an hour long, this is where we do. We go into my office, we sit down. It's cold. I'm recovering usually from an hour or 2 in the sun. Give them a cold glass of water, and I say, so Cameron, you're my student. I say, tell me, what's a win for you? What's your goal? What do you want to try and accomplish from this time together? And immediately, not only do I want to find out what they want, which, like Jeff said, you got to ask questions. What do you want? They share something kind of personal and emotional with me, the very first thing. And now it's like we had this secret. And I start to establish a connection, an emotional connection with that student. And that emotional connection is so important. So let's say they set their goal, and they said, usually when I'm asking for a goal, it needs to be motivational for them. It's going to be something that's going to drive them through the difficult times, right? I want there to be a time limit or a time commitment. I'm going to accomplish this by June 1st. And it has to be measurable. You have to know whether you hit the mark or not. So those are the 3 criteria I have. It usually just takes a minute. We're having our water. After the end of a minute, I have this emotional bond that's starting to define. I know what's going to drive them, that I'm going to help push them towards this goal. And then I start to share my expectations, because this is where developing your culture really starts. So second minute begins. I say, you know what? I have this packet for you here of training notes. I give these notes to every single student. And if you're coming in for a bunker lesson, I'm going to give you bunker notes. They're prepackaged. Bunker notes, training notes, mental game notes. If you're coming in for a putting lesson, you get putting notes, you get training notes, mental game notes. It's very simple to do. And, you look professional. The student comes in, you're having this conversation. People like free things, right? Or they perceive them to be free even though they're paying for them. You give them the notes. This is what I want. We're going to follow this structure. Now all of a sudden they think, wow, this is starting to be a bit bigger than what I was expecting. I was just thinking I was going to fix my right arm movement. There are 5 avenues to improve. And one of the most important, they're all important, but I tell them these notes, these training notes, are because there are 5 avenues to train, and I know the low-hanging fruit is to train better, to get the most value from the time that you invest. If you're going to put in a half an hour into your bunker game, let's make sure that half an hour counts. I think most people are logic-driven. They can see this right away. It's like, yeah, I don't want to go out there and waste my time. And we know as coaches that a lot of people that we teach are working really hard and getting worse. That's another epidemic in our game, right? So we're going to make our training time count. And I'll start right with it. I said, I'm going to evaluate your equipment. We need to make sure that, listen, in wedge play around the greens, if the lie angles are too upright for the student, they have to develop poor mechanics to function. So I'm always checking their equipment, the lofts, the lie angle. There's a new, I'm not saying this because I'm sponsored by Titleist, but Titleist has a new SM6 wedge out that has progressive center of gravity, or progressive CG, that is in line with a normal full set. Heretofore, there's been iron sets that have progressive CG and wedge design, which has one. And this is a game changer. And just like the golf ball, when it came out with the hard ball 2 decades ago, or adjustable design in woods where you could change the loft and lie angle, it's a game changer. You mark my words, 6 years from now, every manufacturer is going to have progressive CG in their wedges. I think the only other company I've seen that has it is 14. I think they also change the CG depending on the loft of the wedge. So we look at the equipment. They need to understand that they need to get better physically. We're going to dive into every arena to help them get better. And this is the performance first mindset really changes everything when you're a coach. Maybe I'm teaching you the right technique, but your sugars are off because you're not eating during your round. Maybe you have physical limitations. Maybe you have an impingement in your shoulder, or you have poor mobility in your thoracic spine. If I teach good mechanics to that person, but I don't do it within the context of how they can move their body, that's a horrible golf lesson. So I'm going to look and evaluate everything there. Obviously, we're going to work on technique. The training time is mainly about skill development. And that's another thing. You can fix mechanics, and that might be an epiphany. That might happen in 10 seconds. I need to do more of this with my right arm. But skill development doesn't work that way. That type of stuff layers on top of itself. It might take months, years, or weeks. And most people don't know how to train, how to invest their half an hour of time to develop skill. And therefore, the information they get during a golf lesson might be the right information for them, but they don't know how to apply it, don't know how to make it actionable, and therefore they shoot the same score they've always shot. That's a bad golf lesson, in my opinion. And then obviously the mental side of the game is critical. So that's why I include mental game notes with every session. All right, so we're 2 minutes in now. They've shared something personally about a goal. I've given them the notes. I said, listen, we're going to look at all of these 5 arenas to get better, and we're going to create a plan. It's going to be a technical plan, it's going to be a training plan, and it's going to be a mental game plan. Those are the components. All right? In addition, I want you to understand during this time together that this is a safe place to learn, to grow. I'm not going to give you permission to be embarrassed by a golf shot. How many of us feel that way? You know what chipping yips is? It's bad technique, and you care. And because you care, you've hit a shot that's embarrassed you. And now that you're embarrassed, you have a little bit of anxiety because we're taught flight or fight, right? We walk up to the situation, it's like, oh, I got the same darn situation again. I've been programmed to avoid this. Anxiety level goes up. Combine anxiety with poor mechanics, and that's a bad. The student needs to understand you can screw up all you want. No one's judging you. I think that's really important. They need to understand as well that as a coach, I don't care what level they perform at, but they have to be willing to do the right things the right way every time out. And I'm very particular. And if you don't do it, you're out. Because one of the nice things about being a successful coach and having people come to you, not only can you set your price up and make more money, it would be good, but you can weed out the poor students. And if someone's not like-minded, they're out. And I'm just going to tell you, and this is going to sound arrogant, and I hope not to mean it this way, but I didn't get really good as a coach until I got really good students, really talented students. So the key to that is kicking the bad ones out. They're just ruining your culture. All right, so you can do it with your facility, create this culture. I was just spent a day at Mike Bender's, a famous teacher, coaches Zach Johnson in Orlando. He's got this off the side of the range. He's got this wedge range set up with all the different targets, and he's got a scoreboard there. And his students come over. They have a test. and they get to write their score on the scoreboard, and they're trying to compete against Zach Johnson. There's a winner for the day. Everybody comes over there. That's our cultural identity that he's created with his students at his golf academy. And you should be thinking in those terms. What can I do at my facility, facility-wise, to create the culture that I know is going to create high performance? Mindset's very important as well. And I do touch on this briefly. If any of you read the research by Carol Dweck, who's America's Stanford University professor, she's done research and study that the biggest determiner of success in a person is not their talent level, it's not their IQ, it's not how much time they're putting in, it's how they view the world. It's their mindset. When you have an obstacle, just read through this if you don't mind. Of course, you have it on your notes, but when you come up to an obstacle, a challenge, right there, do you avoid it? Do you turn away? No, it's too tough? Or do you roll up your sleeves and say, wow, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to grow. And just how you view the outside world really determines your success and how you react on your journey more than anything else. So I want my students to understand and embrace the challenges along the way. Because in any high achievement or road to mastery, there is going to be hundreds of challenges. Some are going to seem insurmountable. That's why I love Jeff's story about standing in the snow on the unemployment line. It's like, yeah, I've experienced those types of things too. You got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and get to work. Look at it like a challenge. This is a big one. When they have a setback, do they blame themselves? Do they get discouraged? Or do they use it as a wake-up call to do better? The golf profession, the typical way we give lessons, for the most part, is broken. Think about a football coach or any other coach at your favorite sport. They see them every day. They give them a directive. This is what we're going to do. And they see them the next day, and they can see if they're doing it or not. Right? They have homework. They can see if they're doing it. If not, they got to run the stadium steps. They get in trouble. What do we do in golf? We see our student once. Maybe we don't see them for a month, 2 months, until they're feel like they're irreparably broken. And now I need to see the coach. That is a horrible structure for long-term sustainable growth. In any coaching relationship, you need accountability. And one thing that I've done culturally in my business, I've gone to great lengths to create accountability with my players. Now let's think about things that you could do. What could you do? I'll just give you an example. My tour players, most of them, send me an audio file after every round. And we use the following structure. Tom Pernice, I was listening to it this morning because he just finished a Champions Tour event in Florida. What did I do well? In other words, I want to know what's going right. Then they go, what did I learn? Now that's code. What did I learn is I really screwed up badly. I effed up. Okay, now. That's an opportunity to learn, right, and grow. So all of a sudden now I know that the student has problems. And then the third question we always answer is, okay, what am I going to do about what I learned? So if he scored a bunker shot, he realized that he did X, Y, or Z technique-wise. He's going to go in tomorrow in his warm-up. And he's going to hit 10 good bunker shots focusing on that correction. That's the ultimate, because knowing having screw-ups and knowing what to do is meaningless unless you can apply it, right? So for my academy students, the non-pros, they have homework exercises. They have to follow up. I might give them skill-driven tasks or games to play. And I might say, okay, Cameron, here's your bunker lesson. The second of every month, I want you to send me a text with the score of these 4 games I want you to play. And guess what if Cameron doesn't send me that text on the second? He's out. Sorry, Cameron, you're out. Homework and following up is critical. Other coaches do it. Golf coaches don't. I don't understand. All right, last thing, and we're going to get to the technique. I want my players, I got this quote from my good friend Dr. Greg Rose of the Titleist Performance Institute. And I share it every lesson. I want my players to understand that hard work is going to be hard. Sounds logical, right? But that's not what they think. They think that you're going to give them this technique, and they're going to go out there, and they're going to work really hard, put their time in, and they're going to shoot 68. That would be hard work is easy. Everybody would be working hard, right? Hard work is hard. You've got to be willing, as someone trying to achieve, to butt your head against the wall, keep working hard. You're not getting anything out of it. Keep after it. Hang in there. And then that 100th day of doing it, all of a sudden the breakthrough happens. But if you're not willing or understand that there's a process there, that it's not just an epiphany, you got to screw up X amount of times to be able to learn it, then they're not going to be successful long term. So, this is what I want you to do. If you're taking notes, I want you to make just one note. What can I do culturally in my business, whether it's to give notes, whether it's to have some accountability? What can I do at my facility to have people walk in and go, wow, we're going to get after it today? What can I do as a coach to improve my culture? Because I think it's more important than this, which is the technique stuff. All right. In every phase of the short game, I like to define my beliefs as a coach. Now, that doesn't mean there's not wiggle room, which we'll talk about. There's wiggle room based on what you can and cannot do physically. There's wiggle room as opposed to style. But how can you commit to something that's not defined? And I want my players to know from A to Z everything that's entailed in the bunker and on a putting. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be complicated. Matter of fact, I'm going to share with you 5 foundational things in a finesse wedge, which I'm going to call within 30 yards of the green, that every player that I coach does. But you think 5 things, that might be a lot. And I'm going to go through great detail with you because I want you to understand. But with a player, they might already be doing 4 of them. There's no mention of the 4 typically. Oh, your setup's great. I love this. We're going to do this one thing, and if you do this one thing, you're going to be great. So for the player, we're going to make it super simple, right? All right. So I believe that's an advantage. This is Tom Pernice on the left. I'm going to show you a video of this guy here in a minute. This guy's got the yips. He's a tour player, or a failed tour player, like most of us. And this is the ball's caught at the exact moment. Just after impact. Look how much higher, and they both have a 60. Look how much higher this is launching, right? Lower. I'm going to call this using the bounce. So the trailing edge, obviously, there's bounce on every club. And if you just kind of let it swing on by, the trail edge will interact with the turf more than what this gentleman is doing right there. Leading edge. Now, there are 2 benefits to doing that. The first benefit is you're going to have a softer touch around the greens, right? And a soft touch, especially on difficult golf courses, is an asset. The second reason why I believe you want to use the bounce inside 30 yards, in most situations, there are situations where you don't do it, and I'll try and cover those, is that your miss pattern becomes tolerable. If this guy hits a half inch behind the ball, in the wrong turf condition, he's going to double hit that ball. He's going to chili dip it, right? Or skull it or whatever. Tom occasionally on a bad lie actually hits behind the ball on purpose. And because the club is just popping off the turf, because it's releasing and bouncing, he might hit just a little behind the ball, but if he hits a drop kick, the ball ends up by the pin anyway. Okay? All right, so let's go through those 5 foundational keys. So this is Tom Pernice, one of my longtime tour students. I've worked with him for 20 years now. He's a master. I think he's probably the best wedge player in the world, honestly. And I want to just kind of point this out. And once again, try and be fairly specific here of what I like and why, but I would never tell all this stuff to a student, right? So I love the level shoulders, the soft left elbow, and cup in the lead wrist. Now this would be for a stock trajectory shot. But in order to get those shoulders level, that left arm can't be in front of you and straight. I like it kind of a little bit tucked around the side and just think of you're like super relaxed. They'd hang that way anyway. He has a very narrow stance because we don't want to be powerful. We want to be weak on purpose here. And usually you drive power through your legs. So narrow stance, his lead foot is pulled back and turned open. You can see his forearms and chest are left. This is my facility in Omaha, right here, going to that pin. Why is the lead foot turned out? Because as you swing the club through, we want the chest and the shoulders to rotate reasonably level. And a lot of times, if you have a square stance and you have center of pressure shift towards the target, you'll get tilt. And tilt will move the low point back, which doesn't help you hit the ball first. So I typically like narrow, pulled back, open. I like my arms soft and level. I think most of you can recognize that if you set up like this, like you might for a 5-iron, that would be difficult to have a soft touch around the greens and get ball first contact. I like a right hand grip. It's kind of soft and on top as well. And you'll see how all these pieces fit together, hopefully, in a moment, if I do a good job. All right. Here, I think, is the master variable in finesse game. You want to deliver the club into the ball at about a 6 to 8 degree angle of attack. Okay, there's a sweet spot there, a little window. If you set up the way I showed you in the first slide, and you deliver the club on plane, which I'm going to say is the shaft plane in the short game, you're going to get this 6 to 8 degree angle, typically, unless there's some egregious error somewhere else. The next issue is that the face, I like it to be square or open to the shaft. So imagine this. If you can, hopefully you can see. This black club might be tough to see. Maybe this would be better. So if the face is square to the shaft, it just kind of runs up the shaft line. And most people say, okay, that's closed to the shaft and that's open to the shaft. Fair enough? One problem in the setup I see that's just common is that, look at if that's square to the shaft and I just bend over, there's no shaft lean. That's square to the shaft. But they set forward shaft angle like this, and they don't allow the face to rotate open. So the face is hooded. So it starts hooded. I don't know if you can see that. And there's a lot of ways to screw this up, but if it starts hooded, it's going to stay hooded. So I actually learned this from Phil Rogers, who's a great short old time. It was Jack Nicklaus's short game coach. That when you have forward-leaning shaft, if I just don't change my grip, the face is going to I call it taking the edge off the club. The face will rotate a little bit open. Now, if with that proper setup, you have some extension or cup in your left wrist, if you just keep this cup and don't over-rotate, don't overturn your hips or your chest, what's going to happen? If I keep the cup, my trail arm will externally rotate, or this way. It'll go up and back around my side, and the face is going to remain square to the shaft. So it's essentially just keeping what you have. Now, the most common miss in this, well, people think of it like a full swing, and they take the extension of their wrist, and they create flexion, and the club goes inside and shut. And I have 4 people raise their hand that are really struggling with their chipping. You know where their backswing is? It's inside and shut. I promise you, 100% of the time. If you'd be the first person I saw that had it outside and open and had the chipping hips. All right, so look how little the hips are rotating. And I always like this. I call this the right elbow plane. Just think of a circle, the head of the club swinging in a circle, the handle swinging in a circle. The right elbow is going to mimic that. It's going to just be like a little mini concentric circle. So, I mean, if the right elbow went too far offline, that affects the plane of your swing. All right. Step 3, we're going to optimize your sequence. We're going to be weak on purpose inside 30 yards. And that number would be a little different for everybody. And I have 2 graphs for you here. Now, I don't want you guys to, some people's eyes glaze over and some people get excited. So this is a 3D graph of full swing, typically, and of 10-yard shots. And I got this from the Tiles Performance Institute. They have 3D of over 100 LPGA champions and PGA Tour players. And they have 4 unique sequences they found on a 10-yard shot. I'm going to just go over how to read this 3D. Okay, it's measuring rotational velocity over time. This is the backswing. That's the downswing. As the segments are moving further from this horizontal line, that's accelerating. As it moves closer, it's decelerating. Accelerating, decelerating. This is your golf swing. So in a full swing, right here, that is the top of your backswing. This is impact. All right, so what's this? Obviously, I'm taking it away. The club head to brown is moving faster than my arm and my chest. Okay, I'm getting up to the top of my swing. I'm decelerating. You see this line where it looks like everything's going together just because it's not in fine enough detail? That's the moment in your downswing and a full swing where you're at the top and everything's just like, that's just that right there. Okay, and then there's an unwinding order that creates power. Hips accelerate. And when they decelerate, your chest catches the momentum. It accelerates. You all get it, right? Standard full swing power. The interesting thing about these graphs and the testing that they did is that they found those 4 sequences. But the ones that had the reputation of those they tested of being amazing wedge players all had the same sequence. Steve Stricker, Padraig Harrington, Tom Pernice, Corey Pavin, Luke Donald. Like the guys you want to be, it's like, ooh, that guy chips really good. They all shared this one. And I'm not saying you can't be amazing at the others. By the way, they're PGA Tour players or LPGA Tour players. They're amazing with these other sequences. I'm just saying it seems like the best ones have this one, so that's what I'm going to teach. Now, at the start of the downswing, actually there is still a little bit of lateral shift in the hips. So there is a little bit of that. And there'll be people that 3D, and I'm not a big tech guy. I don't do a ton of 3D. I like to do it when they're going good. So I have kind of a baseline measurement. If they ever get off, I can go back to it. But they'll say, oh, no, there's not a reverse sequence. But they're missing the point because even though there might be a little center pressure shift at the start of your downswing, what pops out so abruptly? This graph, what is that? Somebody. It's the club. The left arm and the chest switch positions. And the reason why is when the club accelerates, that decelerates the arm. That's why there's the flip. So great players, Corey Pavin, casts the club at the start of his downswing from 10 yards. You cast the club. The goals from 10 yards are completely different from 200. The way you use the club is completely different. Do you want to use the bounce on a 5-iron? Of course not. Do you want to have a soft touch with the 5-iron? Of course not. I want to be able to penetrate that thing and smash it. So as the goals change, the way you use your body to use the club to produce the optimal outcome has to change as well. To me, this makes complete sense. And if I have a student, the first thing I want them to know is if you do something, if you're great from 200 yards and you think that a 10-yard shot's a mini full swing, you're going to be bad at it. It's really tough to be great at both. The great players have figured it out. They're good at both, but it's not the same. It's as different as a putting stroke to a bunker swing, in my opinion. I feel like this has been mistaught more than any other thing in the history of golf instruction. I was taught lean left, get your hands ahead, keep your hands moving past the club, don't break down, because when you break down, you skull shots, right? And we hate this, right? That little skull, we've all seen that one. I'm not the only one. The correction for this little flip like that is not to keep your hands ahead. What's happened? Now, let's look at this graph one more time. This is impact. That's the lead arm. The blue's the chest. Oh, excuse me, I got that the other way. Chest and arm. Where is peak rotational velocity? Where's the maximum speed of the chest and arm relative to impact? A 10-yard shot. Somebody. Still going up. Impact. Still going up. Then it starts to decelerate. Peak velocity of the arm and the chest are after impact. So let's think about 3Ding this person. What's the lead arm and chest do before impact? Huge premature deceleration. The correction is not to keep your hands ahead, it's to keep your arms and chest moving. If flipping at it created a skull, then Tim, who's on his phone right now, is going to get a shot in the forehead. Because I'm just going to flip that. Now, I didn't skull that across the green, even though it's like a massive flip, right? What if I flipped it like that, but I kept my arm and my chest moving? That doesn't look too horrible, I hope. Does it? So the correction is not a block. You're just ruining the way the club is designed. The correction is to have a finesse sequence like Luke Donald, or Steve Stricker, or Corey Pavin, or Tom Pernice. All right, the fourth foundational element that I have is we're just going to let the club release. Now, I use the term let here purposefully. Let. Do I try and release it? I really don't think you need to. I think you just swing like you're 10 years old and you haven't been coached out of it, is really what I want. I mean, the club wants to pass your body. Just relax. Let it go. Now, as a coach, you can measure the release very easily and simply, and I just noticed this after seeing hundreds of videos, like, wow, the good players, if you take doesn't matter where the shaft is at address, let's say I'm hitting a low shot and I have shaft lean, or I'm hitting a higher shot and I take some out. If I put a line on my video camera about 3 inches in front of the shaft, that's set up, there's impact. The ball's just up in the air. See how the shaft matches? Works every time. If the shaft is leaning back, then they need more support of the chest or the arm. If the shaft's ahead, they need to sequence the swing a little bit better and allow that club just to fall. And gravity is your friend. Charlie Wee is one of my long-term students. He told me, like the first year when I was working, I was trying to teach him to do, so he goes, yeah. And I just feel like gravity's my friend. All right, so you can measure the release. Lastly, now here's the center pressure shift there at this transition there. Once again, it's more lateral. It's not rotary at the beginning. It's rotary later. The energy always flows towards the pin. It always goes this way, and not only does it go towards the pin, but it goes up. The people that struggle chipping, the 4 people raise their hands, they're all going down. Boom, and some of them are going back. So we're going to go up and forward. So there's a reverse pivot in the backswing. That's the top of the backswing. Why? Because the lead shoulder goes down. In a full swing, it works more across your body. And a 10-yard shot, it works more down. As it goes down, your head will go forward. I don't ever have to teach a tour player to do this because you put them on video and every one of them does it. They just go. And then as they deliver, think about it through your feet or by supporting with your chest or whatever, but the energy's going that way. Okay, so there's those 5 foundational things. And I want to teach you to do this just like I would teach a beginner. So, I want you to stand up, please. Please stand up. Just behind your chair, we're going to make a swing. So push your chair in. This half of the group, on this side of the aisle, we're going to hit a 30-yard shot. This half, we're going to hit a 7-yard shot. And what I want you to do is I want you to pretend that you have a golf ball in your hand. I want you to get your feet narrow. And let's all hit towards the exit sign. So let's point like we're going to hit a shot right there. And we're all going to play right-handed. So if you're a lefty, you're a beginner. You're just starting over. So face like we're going to hit a ball, so we're going to face that way, right? All right, I want your left heel pulled back and turned open. I want there to be some hip hinge. When you bend over, your arms are dangly. This ball's sitting there. And I want you to take your thumb and put it up in the air. And I want you to take your trail hand and put it behind your back. Trail hand behind your back. All right, the thumb is the toe of the club. So we don't want to turn our hips. We're just going to swing this back like we're going to give this a little 7-yard toss or a 30-yard toss. And you're just going to throw the ball out there. So throw it to the exit line, right? You feel the center of pressure shift in your feet? Try it one more time. Feel how your energy's flowing to the pin. Good. Now, stay up. Think about how you sequence your swing. You're at the top. Did you fire your hips? No. You just started this way. And then once your arms kind of got in front of you, your chest kind of carried through the momentum of the arm, and they just kind of rode together right up to the finish, right? All right, I want you to do this one more time. But what we're going to do here is on the finish, I want you to hold your finish, and then I'm going to have you place your lead arm that's behind your back on the club. And I want you to hold that position. Let's do this as a group. Ready? Ready position, one arm. 30 yards, 7 yards, right? Hip hinge. Toe to the sky, little toss. Hold it. Put your lead arm on. Now look at the screen. You guys have won 3 majors in 1953. You guys over here have won the U.S. Open and the Masters. So it's Raymond Floyd and Ben Hogan. Right? Look at the center of pressure. Chest. Look at Hogan's soft left elbow, the cup in the lead wrist. Listen, I didn't invent this stuff. All I did was, when I started teaching, I realized I had no clue what I was doing. Even though I had worked in the Dave Phelps Short Game School like Jeff, I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought, you know what? Since I don't know the right way to do this, I'm just going to study what good players do, and that's what I'm going to teach. So all this is derived from what great players, in my opinion, even though you see a wide variety, essentially do, and why they fit together. Love that picture of Hogan. He should have a cigarette coming out of his mouth. All right, sit down if you don't mind. Thank you. So if you were a beginner and you're in my school, and I teach, thank you, Cameron, I have a ladies beginning golf school every spring where I have usually, 8 to 15 women that have never played, and my goal is to try and, besides to teach them how to play, but ultimately immerse them into the women's program at the club where I'm at. What we do, we start off, I say, I'm going to teach you to pitch the ball today and chip the ball with a soft touch around the green. We start off just throwing balls. We have our pile of balls, they're set up at the green. I say, okay, you got the ball in your hand, thumb to the sky, give it a little toss. Let's be aware of what's happening in your feet. Where's your chest pointing? Are your hands in front of you? And after 5 or 6 swings, they kind of get a sense of the motion. I'll say, okay, let's put that club in your trail arm. Just put your hand on your thigh so your shoulders are level. And let's just make the same motion, one arm only. Maybe we do 5 swings. Maybe we hit 2 or 3 shots that way. And then after we hit the shot, we put the left hand on the club. And then say, okay, gals, that's it. And I'm telling you, in 10 minutes, I'm not trying to say this to brag. I don't mean it that way. I can get a beginner hitting soft little pitches up in the air from 10 yards off the tie line. You need to understand that most of us, it's not that hard. We've been coached out of it through, in my opinion, misinformation. Oh, you're not hitting the ball? Good. Put the ball further back in your stance. And put it so far back until you can hit it. All of a sudden, you're taking it way inside. The club's not working properly. So that's how I would teach a beginner. Let's just take a look at some video. This is Tom Pernice. Let's just look at those 5 foundational things. Watch his head. See the reverse pivot? There's the club releasing, chest supporting. See the center pressure shift through his feet. Love the reverse pivot. Watch how much taller he is at impact. I'm going to stop that if I can. I may not be able to. At impact. I want you to see how tall he is. There's impact. Isn't he 2 inches taller than he was at address? Very common. Good players. Why? Because he's got room to get his angles out now. What if you're getting your angles out and you dip down? Right? Charlie Hoffman, I could show you a picture. I got a million videos on my computer there. He's looking like this at impact. He's not even remotely looking at the ball. I always love to show that video to the people with yips. I say, okay, I want you to be the most free, least concerned guy on the planet. Because what happens when we have chipping problems, a lot of times the hyperfocus gets right down here. It's really bad for you as a player. Have hyperfocus about impact. You want to be external. You want to be thinking about the landing spot, the target, the energy. And those people are suffering. They just get so right here. And so I'll show them that picture of Charlie. I said, give me a Charlie Hoffman impersonation. Get taller and look over there. And usually it's like the first and second shot are just beautiful. It's like I've never felt that way over a ball. All right, so the playing toe up, set up open, thumbs falling. There goes the chest. Soft touch, complete control. One more time, watch the right elbow fold and go up the side in the backswing. Realizing that if you have a lot of rotation in your hips and your chest, that's not going to happen. In a full swing, you'll have width, right? So a little more of a, whatever, one-piece takeaway. You have width in the right arm because the chest is turning. So if the chest doesn't turn, that allows that right arm to fold. And last one, Tom. Coming right at you. Club's falling. Love the soft elbow like Hogan around the side, face is open, right? Now think about this. If the face was square or open to the shaft here, and then on the finish, the face is open to the shaft there, which it is, what did the trail arm do? Trail arm had to supinate, had to go this way. What's the trail arm do in a full swing? It doesn't supinate, right? You square the face and you want forward leaning shaft so you can pinch the ball, it pronates, turns this way. Opposite. So once again, you need to understand, I think, optimal performance from 10 yards is different than optimal performance from 200. Right.
How would you basically to teach that?
So for a beginner, I teach it exactly the same way. Now, will their skill set allow them to hit ball first contact and control like a pro? Of course not. But they'll hit shots, and their good shots will be really good. And of course, they'll hit the bad ones. But there's always a solution. If they're releasing and scooping it, it's because they didn't get center of pressure shift to the left, they didn't set up properly, they didn't support with their chest. But I don't like to fix problems with other problems. I want the correct solution. And the other thing, if you teach a beginner this method, it's like, you know what, I don't think you have the ability to be great, so I'm going to teach you this other way. You're doing them such a disservice because now they can't hit a ball off a downslope. Now they get a ball buried in the rough and they can't hit a high shot. You severely limit them, in my opinion. So I literally teach a beginner the same way, and there's always ways to do it. Now think about it. It's like, let's say I have a child, and I don't want them thinking about any of this stuff, right? How would I get them to do it? Those right arm only swings are great. A lot of times I'll put them on a Dynadisc. You know those things you have in the gym that are squishy, right? Have them stand on a Dynadisc. They got to stand like this. Their feet are together. They have hip hinge because they're tall all of a sudden, which is awesome because now they get their arms dangling. And I'll have them hit their shots standing on a Dynadisc. There are ways to coach a beginner, a child, and get them to trend towards optimal or correct mechanics without doing them the disservice of teaching them faulty mechanics because you don't believe they're talented enough. Listen, Steve Stricker is not my student. Steve Stricker, when he hits these little shots, he's hitting a little bump. It's the back of the range. It's the Players' Championship. A little bump into the hill, short of the green. And so he's hitting a little bump and run. And he's going to bounce it over to that right pin. Steve Stricker doesn't look anything like Tom Pernice, does he? Tom Pernice is really wristy. Steve Stricker looks like he doesn't use his wrists at all. But think of those 5 foundational elements. Is he doing it? Is he set up open? Yes. Does the plane work up? Does the club work up the plane, toe up? Yeah, especially for a low shot. I feel like that's not too bad. Look at the support with the chest. And let's look at Steve Stricker's hips at the start of his downswing. See what kind of sequence he has. Is he using the ground to generate force? No, a ton of hip movement there. Now they come. There's the support. Face is open. Okay. Don't confuse, as a coach, foundational elements and style. Steve Stricker doesn't look like Tom Pernice. They're doing the same thing in my book. You know, Ben Hogan and Seve Ballesteros were doing the same thing in my book. They don't look the same, but the foundational elements, the pieces are there. Now, the only difference is if you're not going to hinge your wrists, you got to hinge somewhere. You got to lever somewhere. So Steve Stricker does it in his right arm. There's a ton of right arm fold. Jason Day is similar. He's got a little more body rotation. I like that. The guy's a genius. Would you fix a guy? Would you change a guy that's a genius if he's not quite doing it how you think it should be done? Of course not. Because what comes first? Performance. Performance first attitude, right? There's other things you can do for Jason Day. You can teach him how to train effectively and efficiently. You can help him with the mental. You can help him with periodization, how to peak at the right time. There's a ton of things you can do as a coach when somebody is performing well with maybe less than optimal technique. I would look at Jim Furyk that way. All right, let's say, who's this for? Everybody, this is a question I get a lot that really bothers me. Oh, you teach pros. You teach pros. Amateurs can't do this. This is a 7-year-old boy. I wouldn't say exceptionally talented, just pretty good. 7-year-old boy can do it. Anybody can do it. This right here with the ball picker. We'll talk about practice here in a minute. This is a form of block practice. He was taken back inside and shut, so he's getting a little rehearsal. And he's just trying to get a little feedback on his backswing. Let's talk about dysfunction and understanding contact problems. So when I started on my journey to try and figure out, I had this academy, I got to figure out what to teach, because I was, the one interesting thing about coaching is the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know a whole lot. And I'm still in that mode. But as I pieced together these 5 kind of foundational things I saw almost everybody do, from Raymond Floyd to Corey Pavin. After about 8 or 10 years of doing it and seeing people screw up, I started to realize that there's balance in the variables that create angle of attack. So that affect it, rather. This is Charlie Wee, and at the end of this, I want you to be able to tell me why he's got the exaggerated flex in his lead quad, and where he's releasing this much. This is at the Olympic Club at the U.S. Open. It's just nasty rough. Obviously trying to hit a really super soft shot out of thick grass. You have 2 elements of those 5 that I gave you that are steepen the angle of attack. Setting up in front, energy flowing to the pin. You have 2 things that are shallow, that finesse sequence and releasing the club or allowing the club to pass. And you have an on-plane that would be somewhat neutral. So I've visualized 2 bristled combs, and in this case, they just kind of slide together perfectly to create this balance. When you have imbalance, you'll get poor contact. So let's think of the plane. What if you, and this is what I want you to, actually this is a good time to just take a little exercise break here. I want you to get a piece of paper. I want you to draw a line right down the middle and a line across, so you have 2 columns with the 2 headings. And I want you to label the headings steep on one side and shallow on the other. Now, line down the middle. Let's think of all the possible errors that we see in finesse wedge game, and let's put them in these columns, right? So if somebody turns early and doesn't allow their right arm to fold, is that a steepening a mistake or a shallowing mistake? Shallowing mistake. You're paying attention. Thank you so much. If your energy flows away from the pin, what's that? Shallow. What if you set up to the right? With maybe you got a too strong a left-hand grip and you got this strong left arm and you're behind the ball and you're set up to the right. All right, somebody give me a steep. What would a steep be? Yeah. You could rotate this way. You could, now, if you turn your hips, you could actually drop the club under, and that could become a shallow. So typically, if you rotate from upper half, that's a steep. If you do it in lower half, a lot of times the good players, they'll drop it under. That would be a shallow. What about what I would call blocking the release? Steep, right? What about a power sequence? Steep, right? So I would go through everything I'd see and I'd categorize them, because when you see some of this dysfunctioning, if you become aware of the steeps and shallows, you immediately figure out what direction to send the student. If they're too shallow, you need to create some steeps somewhere. If they're too steep, you need to create some shallows, right? Let's look at a couple dysfunctioning players. One of the reasons why you couldn't video this is because I don't want Joey Sindelar to realize I'm showing you his video. So Joey thinks he's got the yips. So let's look at that. You tell me, when you see the plane here, the handle goes high, clubs a little bit around and underneath it. Is that steep or shallow? Shallow, right? What about that little knee dip there? Isn't that a beauty? I hate that. All right. Let me watch his head. A nice little reverse pivot. Which way to move? That's a shallow. Can't move away. He's set up a little bit too far behind the ball. That's a stock shot for him. That to me is a setup for, it looks like he's trying to hit a high one. So I thought it was this is a shallow. So his setup is shallow. His backswing is shallow. His delivery is shallow. He's too shallow to produce that right angle of attack. What are his two misses? He gets nervous, he sculls the ball across the green. I got the yips. Or he's got the face open, so he doesn't chili dip him, but he doesn't hit him solid. So he kind of half drop kicks him, and he'll skull one across the green. I have the yips. Why? Because he cares. He's getting poor results, and he cares. If he had 12 beers, would he have the yips? No, because he wouldn't care. Right? Just play, which is always a good goal for a student. Just give him to relax and just play. But, all right. Here's the guy from the first video. Watch this transition. So that would be my term. I don't know if it's quite power sequence because it doesn't look like he's really firing his hips, but the lead arm is definitely moving faster than the club. Great way to fix that problem is that trail arm only drill. The one thing I liked, I gave Joey Sindelar. You need feedback in order to learn, right? Joey, get the sun, get your shadow, put the sun at your back, look at your shadow, and let's watch. Clue him in on what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to go a little forward, and then more forward yet as you deliver. And in 5 swings, getting feedback, watching his shadow on the ground, he learned the feel through his feet of what he needed to do to steepen the angle. So to fix Joey Sindelar, or I shouldn't say fix, that's the wrong term. To help Joey Sindelar, I got his chest a little more open. I moved the ball back, which I typically don't like, to create just a little shaft lean. I got his energy and his head moving towards the pin. Did I mess with his backswing? I didn't. You know why? Because that's what he does. And he's been doing it since he was 10 years old. And even though that might help him, that would be such a huge change. It would take him months and months, maybe years, to make it look more like Compromises. And I don't think he needed it to perform. I think with a little better setup and energy moving to the pin, You just allow him to do what he wants to do there. And you never know if that's going to work or not until you see them perform, but it did for him. So you don't, and listen, we're not after perfect, we're after functioning. Because if a player can function, then you can focus on more important things. What's more important than, once you function, what would be more important than technique? Somebody. You got to be able to control the ball. You got to be able to pick the right, you got to be able to judge the lie. You got to give it the right energy. The skill is more important. So once you become functioning, now you can focus on skill, which is really, I think, the end game for us. All right. All right, here's the after. It's not perfect, but sequences are much better. Move the ball forward. Do this probably after some right arm only drills. All right, let's see how I'm doing on time. Let's do it real quick. Let's see, there's a gentleman. Raise your hand if you were struggling again with the chipping. I want to pull somebody up. All right, come on up, sir. All right, this is what I want you to do. All right, we're going to hit a shot to Tim. Okay, you can't hurt him. This is okay. And you're just going to hit a stock 10-yard shot. And this is what I want the audience to do. In his setup from face on, I want you to assess the different elements that might be a shallow or a steep, or what you would perceive as an error. Then I'm going to have you hit a shot this way. You just hit it in the net, and we're going to assess those as well. 10-yard shot. Just, do your normal thing. And what's your name? Vincent, what's your typical miss pattern? Can't control. Okay, so the rhythm. All right, Tim, right there. Look, aim at Tim's belly button. Normal trajectory. All right, you guys on this? Steeps and shallows? Okay, yeah. Two hands. Yeah, just do your normal thing. So there was the touch issue. All right. All right, you guys got one or two things there, hopefully. You figured out where the energy was going or the sequence. All right, now I want you to turn, and I want you to hit right here. It's a softball, it won't hurt that. Right there. All right, you guys checking out his setup? Yeah, I'm going to stand here so I can assess. So there was the contact behind the ball, right? All right, so from face on, what did you notice? Somebody. Yes, sir. Yeah, he set up behind the ball. And from this view, his lead forearm is poking out to the right. So he's set up shallow. Okay. I would pull your left foot back and flare it open. Go ahead and set up to that ball right there. Face the crew this way, yeah. Let's go ahead and square your right foot. Yep. Let's run the ball through the middle of your stance. And let's tuck your left arm a little bit around your side. So if you had a flashlight or a laser beam coming out of your chest, it's pointing in front of the ball. All right, now, by moving this way, that helps move the low point forward. All right, not only that, but when you set up close, I don't know if you noticed, but the club was a little outside shut, and then it actually dropped under just a little bit. All I want you to feel here is allow this toe to just rotate open just a little bit. So the toe wins the race, okay? And then I want you to just pretend like you get that energy flowing to the pin, because he really didn't move towards the target, did he? All right, so before we do that, let's do one little drill. Let's go ahead and do that shadow drill. Put the sun at your back, pull your left foot, yep, look at your shadow, and just make a pretend swing. Watch your shadow. You're not watching the ball. Watch what happens to your head. Did that feel like it go forward? Because it didn't, did it? That's a bit too much. Just a little, and then, yeah. So you feeling that through your feet? Right? Now, it's a safe environment. We're not judging you, right? And not only that, but typically it might take you 8 or 10 trials to get one just the right feel. But let's try that one more time. So, ready, Tim? Square. Ball position a little further back, so you just have a little shaft lean. Right? Your laser's here. Right? Well, if I get the laser right. So the toe goes this way, and then I just want you to just be free, and I want you to feel the energy flow towards Tim, okay? So hopefully, Yep. There you go. Just focus on the energy flow into the pin. Go for it. Chest a little more open, please. And just soft left arm. There you go. So, and then energy flow in the pin. Now, why did that have so much backspin on it? What creates spin? How do you spin a ball with a closed club face? Yeah, you got to get the face. Yes, sir. Yeah, but how do you release the club with the closed club face? So we got him open here, which allowed him to get the face open there, which allowed him to release the club there. See, the whole thing fits together. That's you know what? Thank you, sir. I'm going to add on to that. You did a good job. Now, you know what I want you to do? I want you to write that down. Step one. Step one would be square foot, left heel back ball position. Laser beam in front. You feel open. Step two, toe feels this way. Step three, you feel the center of pressure or whatever you felt to go that way. And I want you to practice shadow drill every day. Just watch your shadow. 5 swings, no ball. Right? And that's part of your plan. So that's exactly what I would do with the student. I assess dysfunction based on how I understand it anyway. At the end of the day, it's going to be very simple in your mind. You got to understand, and the plan is written down. These are the technical keys. That's just the first part, because we got to do the training plan and the mental plan next, right? The technical plan. All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. Good job. This is what I did for this gentleman. Now, once again, this guy has got a 64-degree wedge. Why? Because he can't put spin on the ball. He can't get it up in the air. He's dead shut, so he's shallow in his setup. Take that straight left arm. Watch where this backswing goes. In and shut. Not very high for a 64-degree wedge. And here we go. There's my typical guy. He comes to me, I got the yips, I can't chip, I'm quitting, or if you can't help me. So this is exactly what I do. I assess that. And let's start with this one. Now, this is kind of interesting. Most people that set up behind the ball like that, a lot of them, a majority of them are right-eye dominant players, because right-eye dominant players like to turn their head this way to look. We're going to talk about that in putting. So I'm over there going like this. I'm sure that looks or feels a bit funny to him. I think it's the necessary first step. If I'm going to say the setup's the first domino, so I'm pushing on his head. Rare day where I get to wear shorts. I was teaching in Florida that day, not at my home facility. I don't like the fact that he's keeping his head down so long. I'd get him to try and free up and look like Annika Sorenstam or David Duval threw the ball. Okay, but that's a little better. Now, as we look at the after here, I want you to look where I'm standing, right in his way. This is uncomfortable for him, and you got to be willing to be uncomfortable to grow. Yep, so he's rehearsing it. That club's on the ground. A little more up the plane. Club's a little more in front of him. Chest is going. Club is exiting left of the ball. I don't know if you noticed the previous one where the big red flag is when the club exits right of the golf ball. Should not happen. How do you not get it to exit to the right of the ball if the face is closed? You want the ball to go to the pin, so get the face open. There's a correction there. Now, the club on the ground. What I'm doing there, right to this seam, I'm going to take a club or alignment stick. I'm going to point it right at that target, and I got my ball about 1.5 feet in front. From my vantage point, with the good setup, the plane is kind of mystical. It's like, where is it, right? I think I'm on plane. But I want the toe to beat the heel back, and from my vantage point, as I look down from this, even though it's not, it's on an incline, it's working slightly this way, it looks to me like it's right over the grip. So I just feel like if I can get them started off properly, right over the grip, that weird things aren't going to happen as much late. So That's called an external cue. And external cues like that, whether it's to miss my body who's standing in the way, or to take the club so it's over the club, or if the 7-year-old boy to put a ball basket in the way. And for the 7-year-old, I'm not explaining this. I'm saying, miss the basket, hit the ball. And he does it, right? But for an adult, we can handle this. Toe beats the heel, right over the club. Okay, it's a circle. Let it go. So that's what that external cues are. If you have an opportunity, now an internal cue would be let your right elbow fold, move your chest. We're thinking inside. Just realize as coaches, I'm sure most of you do, or all of you do, external cues, the typical student learns 3 times faster than thinking internally. And not only that, but it holds up under pressure so much better. Now, there's a difference between awareness of what I need to do, having a swing key, that's fine, and thinking about technique. You're actually activating different parts of your brain. If I have a hard thought about folding my right arm, that's different than thinking about Tim's belly button there. Tim, get off your phone. No, just kidding. And being aware that the club's traveling or feeling a little this way. Awareness is different. Actually, it's than a hard thought. Okay. So I like to have a baseline. So this is Julieta Granada, it's one of my LPGA students. And we just create a T-square. These create kind of an external cue. Put the ball position in the middle across the first alignment stick. This is kind of a plane indicator. Now, she doesn't have her left foot turned out very far because she doesn't like to do it, and she performs well, so I don't argue, right? Soft left arm. I love having a way to get into your setup and establishing your base foundational things. Because one of the problems we have as coaches is our students get off, and they don't know they're off. They don't realize that their setup is off. That gentleman there didn't realize he was set up closed with his, he probably would have said, no, I'm open. But I'm standing right there going, no, you're closed. You need to create a way for them to get in and out of their foundational things and make it as simple as you can. So this T-square, hands are on one side of the stick, the club head's on the other. She can check to make sure the face matches the shaft. The club follows this stick for an instant. She knows she's swinging on plane. Because she knows what she's trying to do and she has a way to do it, she can stay consistent over time. There's continuity. All right, and we're going to get into that now. Another thing that having a base motion does, it allows us to understand adaptations. Now, you don't have one trajectory. You might just have a base. We're going to change setups and swings to do different things with the golf ball when it's advantageous to do so. But kind of understanding where home base is, it makes it easier to understand all the different adaptations that she's going to do. All right, so I want to go through some of these adaptations. All right, so here's Charlie Wee. He's hitting what I'm going to call a stock trajectory shot. But hands on one side, he's probably got you can see the face matches the shaft there. He's probably got about 7 or 8 degrees of shaft lean. Let's just call that normal. Just hit a normal shot. You'll want to see some forward shaft lean there on a normal shot. The thing that most players don't understand, they just can't quite grasp, and if you're like-minded, we need to educate them, is that there's one arm motion. There's one way to swing. There's those 5 pillar things. And if you want to hit a different trajectory, just set up different. Or get a different club, right? So here's Charlie Wee hitting a higher than normal shot. The ball positions come up, the shaft leans come out, the face is more open to the shaft. And this, if you could see, this would be called your placard in English, this little, whatever, where your buttons are. As the ball slides forward, if you have a laser beam coming out of your chest, you just got to point it in front of the ball. So as the ball slides forward, your chest gets a little bit more open. That's all. But if you do that and make the same swing, this little high flop shot over a bunker is not that much difficult because we already learned the right arm swing. We just got to figure out how much energy to give it. For a tour player, we do 4 trajectories. This is normal. That's higher than normal. We'd do lower than normal here where the ball would go back. There might be 10, 15 degrees of shaft lean. And there would be what I call a four trajectory, like a bunker swing here. So I want my good players to be able to hit 4 windows. And actually, they don't hit 4. I call them 1, 2, 3, and 4 for sake of clarity. A tour player might say, I'm going to hit just right there with about a 2.5 trajectory. In other words, just like a little higher than normal. But I'm not, so he's very clear as far as the picture that he's seeing. Normal player, we give 3 trajectories. Lower than normal, normal, higher than normal. For most club players, let's say the 20 handicaps, I give them 2. You got normal and you got higher. Now, why would you want to be able to, say I got my 56 here, why would I want to vary trajectories with that club? Why not just hit a stock trajectory all the time? Because there are certain ground conditions where it's advantageous to dig a little bit more, to bounce a little bit more, to steepen a little bit, to shallow a little bit. All right? And what would this, if I put the ball further back to hit a lower shot, remember I'm just returning to my setup just a little in front because there's 6 to 8 degrees of shaft length, would that create a steeper angle of attack than this higher shot? Steeper or shallow? What's this one? Steeper, yeah. What if you're in the setting in the semi-rough? You got a little muff behind the ball. Wouldn't you want to steepen it just a little bit? I love a little lower than normal shot out of that lie. What if I'm sitting on dormant Bermuda grass that's wet and it's into the grain? Can you feel me here? You know what I'm going for? It's like really chunk city, easy. All right, I see at least one person out there. Would you ever hit a lower than normal shot off that lie? Because look what happened to the leading edge of the club. Sharpens. The effective bounce is reduced. To me, it's like, no, I'm going to go get one less club. I'll go get my sand wedge instead of my lob wedge. Or I'll go get my pitching wedge instead of my sand wedge. I'll defer down, and I'll play a higher than normal shot with my pitching wedge. Balls forward, faces open, up, down, support. That club is not going to dig into the turf because I've softened the leading edge and I've increased the effective bounce by taking the shaft lean out and getting the face open. So at a high level, being able to control your trajectories is key to picking the right shot in the right circumstance. And that is a skill. And quite honestly, the technique is not that hard. The skill is what's hard. And as coaches, we've got to spend most of our time, once we create function, on skill development. So I want to just circle back and give you a picture of this lesson I'm giving. We're in there having a glass of water. They give me a goal. We're now buddies because we share something that's private between us. They understand that I have expectations of them as a student. I go out. I ask about dysfunction in their body as far as mobility. I look in their bag to see what kind of grinds and wedges they have. I go out and I assess them. I have a little 5 or 6 shot course I want them to do. I want to see if they can hit a stock shot like we did for this gentleman, or I want them to see if they can adapt. What do you do on a bad lie? What do you do on a uphill? What do you do on a downslope? Can you hit a high shot? Can you hit a low shot? And at the end of just a couple of minutes, I have a very clear picture of what they're doing. Create a technical plan, hopefully that's simple, that they can understand, and we write it down. Now, the next phase is training. How to properly adapt. You don't have one shot. There's trick shots too, where you're going to adapt. You have all sorts of lies. The swing you make for the ball on the left is not the same swing or setup that you make for the ball on the right. And obviously it depends on what you want to do with the club. But I'll give you a situation. So we have our standard 6 to 8 degree angle of attack. You have a ball teed up in the rough. Would it be optimal to shallow your swing a little bit or to steepen it? Steep up. Shallow. You guys are way smart. And likewise, if you get this ball sitting down, it'd be advantageous to steepen the angle of attack a little bit. The way I like to shallow is I like to defer down a club. So if it's a lob wedge shot, I go get a sand wedge. I set up, imagine I'm going straight down this club line. I get a little more open than normal, and I swing in to out relative to my body. It feels like a draw. That in to out swing is going to create a shallower angle attack, just like out to in or a fade mentality would create steeper, right? So I call it my Raymond Floyd shot with my players. It's like, hey, we got an upslope. We're into the grain. It's teed up. Let's just shallow it out a little bit. Let's just do a little bit of Raymond. Okay? Situations you want to steepen. Down slopes, bad lies in the rough. Now, you could steepen it one of two ways. The easiest way is just put the ball further back in your stance and play a lower than normal shot. So if you saw Phil Mickelson chip in yesterday on 18, he had the ball sitting in the semi-rough. He had the ball back. Just boom, little pop that steepened the angle so he could get good contact out of that lie, which is a little muff behind it. The trickier way would be this way. I want to hit a high shot. This is Tom Pernice. Just choke down. Shorter club. It's going to create more angle. He's widened his stance. He's leaning into his lead quad with the handle forward. All this thing makes his club want to work up. Now, is he still releasing the club? Of course he is. That's a foundational element for us. Crappy lie. It's poana, which I don't know if you're familiar with poana grass. Really sticky, tough. It's like kukula. Really dense, tough grass. So when it comes to the effectiveness of your training, once again, we want to maximize the value. The technique is not that hard. What are we trying to cultivate? We're trying to cultivate skill. And we need to be smart about what we're trying to accomplish during our practice. So I have it broken down. Remember, I gave these people notes. This is what's in them. All right, we have block practice first, random practice second, which is more skill development, and we're going to play games. And it really depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. This block practice was the club on the ground, missing my thigh. If you're too shallow and you're not getting the low point in front, I love setting a coin like 3 inches in front of the ball, hitting both the ball and the coin, the shadow drill. If you're first learning a motor pattern, then you would up the quantity to maybe 50% of your practice time. But once that motor pattern is learned, it becomes a maintenance issue. And what I want you to try and do is just limit it to about 10% of your total training time. And the goal is not to learn how to do it, because you already know. It's to get confirmation that you are doing it. All right? And this is really where you're spending most of your time. Why? Because we're trying to create skill-specific development exercises. So let's say this gentleman comes up. He's now got function. He knows what to feel. That doesn't mean he can hit the right landing spot. It doesn't mean he can choose the club. It doesn't mean he knows how to adapt. What kind of exercise can I do as a coach to give this person an exercise? Hey, go out there and do this for 5 minutes where I can help develop skill. This is one of my favorites. I got 5 pins out on the green. I'll give them 5 pennies. I say, okay, you're going to hit balls from here. You're going to pick your club. And you're going to walk out on the green and put your penny in your landing spot. As soon as you land a ball within 1 foot of the penny, and it ends up within 3 feet of the cup, that hole's knocked out. You hit your shot, they immediately, most of them see, it's like, oh boy, that landing spot was off by like 7 feet. And make them walk out, replace the coin into a new spot, and now they go until they get it, right? So at the end of their 5 holes, they've marked their landing spot successfully 5 times and hit 5 great shots. That would be a skill development exercise. And that's just one of literally 50 to 100 type of games or exercises I give people to develop skill, to learn how to self-coach their mistakes, to develop focus and mental management. And we're going to cover mental management and focus a little bit more tomorrow when I get into some of the other parts. But essentially, there's a mix to your training, and this is the mix that I use. We do a little bit of block practice first, confirmation I'm doing it right. We do skill development work for 70% of our time, essentially, or the time we have, and then we play a game and we win our way off the green. How could you win your way off the green? Finesse wedge. I got 5 pins. Here's 5 random balls. All right. A winning score is 3 out of the 5 got to be inside 6 feet. or inside 5 feet. You develop anything, you make it skill level appropriate, obviously, right? When you do random practice, I'm going to finish with this story, okay? You need to have all your clubs, all your chipping clubs, because what are you practicing? You're practicing touch, feel, judgment. If you have one club, are you doing that? No, it's decision making, right? So I was in San Diego at a place called the Bridges at Rancho Santa Fe, beautiful club, doing a little school for the pro there as a friend of mine. He said, hey, I got these two 14-year-olds, really good players. Will you help them? Yeah. So they come down this hill, this little chipping green, and they have their lob wedge, don't they? They're 14, 60-degree wedges. I was like, hey guys, go back up to the cart and get all your chipping clubs. There they go. Got it? Okay, fair enough. Come on down here. I got a shot for you. So I take them to the back of the green, upslope, dormant Bermuda, into the green, wet. I pick this pin like 30 yards across the green that looks like they should hit a reasonably low shot. It wasn't something that you typically see a high shot for. What's that 60-degree wedge doing on an upslope when they're looking at a low shot? Right? First kid hits it 4 inches in front of him. Right? The buddy's just lying. They're just crying on the ground laughing. The second kid double hits it. I said, okay, I want you to go back and I want you to get your 7-iron. I want you to get your 9-iron. Listen, isn't that kind of like almost the lost art? Like being able to hit a 7-iron or a 9-iron around the greens? I think it is. I think the advent of 60-degree wedge, or 64 for that one gentleman, I think it's ruined a lot of players because they don't know how to learn to adapt the club to make it work, how to add bounce or take bounce off, because everything's just a 60. And you know what a 60-degree wedge should do? It should go like this. With good technique, got to go right up in the air, which is why my guys, girls, they chip a lot with their pitching wedge and their sand wedge, because the only shot that goes this way is the one where they have their 60-degree, because I think good technique, proper technique, produces a naturally soft ball flight. Okay. All right, so that's all I have for you.